showed me why. Instead of asking why, start asking why not. Time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're lying in the sun. Bit by bit, the older that we get, the faster it tick, 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 ticks. Time flies. Whoa, whoa, time flies.
Hello there, Lyndall here with Marshfield Old School Times. A couple of minutes late today, but a little bit chilly today. I forgot to turn the heat up here in the podcast room, so James and I have been visiting. I got James Farr back with me today. James, welcome.
Thank you.
James was here with his dad, Gene, last week. Boy, we had a great time. Gene Farr, 90-year-old, had a great life and lots of neat stories that we enjoyed. I especially enjoyed his military service, some of those stories when he was in the Army. I thought that was really good. But today we're going to talk a little bit about Marshfield Old School Times in the 70s, maybe the 60s, 70s, 80s, and when James and I both grew up. Of course, James graduated from Marshfield High School in 75. So this is their 50th year since graduation. And I know they're planning to have a 50th reunion here at the campus during the Reunion Fest time, which will be July the 5th, Saturday. The parade and Marshfield 4th of July parade will be on the 4th, which is Friday. So everybody can put that on their calendars. And of course, you don't have to be a graduate of Marshfield to attend Reunion Fest. We welcome all friends, anybody that would like to come. It's a great time to reminisce and reconnect with people that maybe you haven't connected with for years. So we'll look forward to that. But Logan's here again today. Logan, thank you for showing up, our producer. And thought I'd mention Dennis Beck's theme song that we always play. As most of you know, Dennis also graduated in 1975 with James, and we're hoping Dennis will be able to come back for the reunion this year. He also has a new song out that I wanted to mention, dedicated to Tom and Sue Ann Lehman, and I thought it was a really good song. I'm sure you can go to YouTube and type that in. It's another good Marshfield couple that Sue Ann recently passed away, but his dedication to them growing up in the Baptist church, it's really good. So look that one up. Well, James, we're going to just kind of sit here and have a conversation. So we don't have anything rehearsed, as you know. I got your retrospect setting out there. I thought the 1975 retrospect. If there's anything we needed to pull out of there, but last week your dad was on, had a great time. Didn't really get a chance to visit with you, so I wanted to have you come back. Why don't we kind of start like we always do when you discovered America, and we'll go from there.
I discovered America on December 31st, 1956. And I tell everybody I was born in Baumgart's parking lot, pretty much.
Is that right?
I was born at Dr. Tommy McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Tommy's office.
That's
okay.
about where it was.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's right. About where McDonald's is or somewhere. Because Stanley's Pharmacy building is still there, of course, which is now a real estate office, and it was right next door to that. So, yeah, it was about where you pull into Walmart, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And Dad said I made a good tax deduction. I was born the last day of the year. He got to pay me for the whole year.
Wonder what the charge was for that, like $40 or something to deliver a baby?
I think it was cheaper than that. I don't know exactly. I was thinking maybe $10 or $15.
I've seen some of those bills from deliveries in those days, and it's amazing how little they were. Cool. So December the 31st of 56. And then you just had one sister, right?
One sister, Deella.
Deella. She's a little younger.
She's about 6 years younger than me. She lives in Aurora now. Been there for quite a while.
Yeah. We didn't really talk too much about your mother last week. Why don't you mention, maybe your folks again and talk a little bit about her and her family.
Okay. Dorothy was born out south of Marshfield, about 5 miles on Hardwood Road. She had 9 brothers and sisters. Her dad was Bill Replogle. Her mom was Pearl, and she was originally a Biggers. And she was born up on a highway about where, there's Johnny Bill Biggers lives there now. That was kind of her homestead.
Yeah. Down close to the big curve.
Yeah, they're on the big curve.
Yeah.
Let's see. She had several brothers and sisters too. I don't remember how many, but she had several.
Pearl, you mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Pearl Biggers Replogle was actually a sister to my great grandmother,
Callie.
Callie.
Yes.
Callie Biggers Roast married Sam Roast, who was my great grandfather, the patriarch of all of the roasts, you might say, in northern Webster County. And of course, Sam had several sons and daughters, and that one of them would be my grandpa Cale Roast. And but anyway, yeah, there's a strong connection back in with the Biggers and the Roasts and in that time frame, the Replogles.
No, on Dad's side, his grandmother was Orphy Roast.
Okay.
And she married Lonnie Farr.
Yeah.
And so my great grandmother would be Orphy.
Yeah.
Farr.
Orphy Farr.
They had an old Model A truck that they drove around in for years.
Yeah, yeah.
They lived across from the Mount Sinai Church. They had used to be an old lane went down through the woods. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, we used to walk down through there a lot. We went to church at Mount Sinai when I was a kid.
Right.
So we're kind of familiar with that area out there.
Orphy Roast Farr, I think, Aunt Orphy, they heard my mom talk about her, would have been Sam Roast's sister, my great grandpa's sister.
She lived to be almost 100. I don't think she made it to 100, but she was up there.
Yeah. Lots of connections from south and southeast Marshfield area there in those days, like all the small communities were. So your mom grew up in that area, your dad grew up in that area, so obviously kind of a natural for them to connect later in life, right?
Yeah, their farms, when Mom was a kid and Dad was a kid, their farms didn't join up in the back, but they almost did.
Did they?
Yeah. So you could walk across there and it wouldn't be very far.
All went to church together,
But they all went to church together. And out at Mount Sinai, I've got a lot of my ancestors, I guess you call them, were founders of the church. You can go inside and there's a thing hanging on the wall that's got their names on it.
Yeah.
And, we all went to church there when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Mount Sinai was a Disciples of Christ Christian church, right? Or same as the Christian church.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Then, of course, I know a lot of those folks in that area out there went to Pleasant Hill Methodist Church if they were Methodists.
And I've got relatives there.
Yeah, I do, and I do as well.
Hill.
The Roasts predominantly were more Methodist, and I think went out there in those early days, and then later on Ebenezer, which is over on P Highway. But so tell us a little bit about. Did you? I know your dad talked about moving to Republic and all that. Why don't you just kind of start then with your childhood and where you guys started out, your mom and dad, when you and your sister were born, and then kind of go a little bit of a timeline there.
Okay, we lived up on the east part of town, back by Frisco Ball Field, that area. The first place I really remember living at was at the corner of 2nd Street and Locust. Had a little house there. Dad had a milk route. I'd go with him when I was a kid.
Was that a can route?
It was a can route.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd open the gates and do things, for him like that. But then later on, he got on to county, and back then I could go with him on the road grader. That was fun.
Right.
I wasn't very old then.
When he had that can route, did he bring the milk back into the Sugar Creek, the old plant by MFA, or was the new one built yet? No, it'd been the old one.
It'd been the old one.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about that. Again, we're kind of documenting Marshfield history, but that was originally the Sugar Creek Creamery that set in front of where about where MFA scales are today. And then Sugar Creek was a subsidiary or had been bought by MFA or something like that. Well, then they sold that to Kraft. Yeah. And then Kraft worked out of that building for a short time, and then they ended up building the new building over where what became, we all would know as Hamptons over on, I guess that's Walnut and 38 over there by the tracks. And that was built in about 65 or 6. My dad happened to work for Kraft in those days, and so that became the new what they call milk receiving station.
I forgot about that. He was a field man.
He was a fieldman, and their Kraft was really, they were really big then. They had probably 6 or 8 field people. Tom Vestal, Gene and Greg Vestal's dad was one, and there was John Calloway later on, old John was one, and there was just several that worked out of the Marshfield plant. But what happened is they, all the milk was converting to grade A, which meant they were going into bulk tanks and had to put in bulk tanks and piping systems and all that, getting away from the can routes. And so they built that new facility over there to kind of accommodate the bulk, the bigger grade A stuff and so forth, but still had the can routes over there too. I mean, I remember going over there as a boy, and I think it's interesting. People don't, you talk about connections. Well, our U.S. Senator Roy Blunt, his dad Leroy was a salesman. He sold dairy equipment, and that's sort of how my family got connected with the Blunts. Was, my dad was a fieldman for Kraft and had uncles that milked, and Leroy Blunt sold dairy equipment, pipeline milkers and all that. And he would be the go-to guy in those days for people to call when they needed a new milking machine or a bulk tank or whatever. And got to know a lot of the people in Webster County, of course, in Eastern Green.
I remember going to Grandpa's little. He milked cows. He wasn't grade A, but he started off in cans. Later on, he got a surge milker, and he finally went to a bulk tank. He never did go grade A, but he did that for a long time.
Interesting. And of course, the Amish, there are just very few of them now that are still milking because the standards got so hard for them. But there's still a few that are. But they're only grade C because their milk has to go into cheese and byproducts. It can't be sold direct because they don't milk in grade A facilities.
After we lived up there on 2nd Street, we moved out next to Donald Roast on the other side, where Donald lives.
38 east.
That place just east of his. We owned that. We had 7 acres there, and we had 2 milk cows. And we milked them by hand.
Oh, you did?
Dad had like a little milk route. We put the milk in bottles. And on his way to work, he would stop at people's houses and set the milk on the front porch. And I guess at the end of the month or end of the week or something, they paid him. Kind of interesting.
That is interesting. It wasn't filtered, was it?
No.
Raw milk.
It's raw milk.
That's cool. And then that took you up till about school time then to get to school?
We lived out there, and I was in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. And Wayne Roast lived next to me. We were pretty good buddies.
He'd have been about a year older than you in school.
He was. He was a year ahead of me. And I smoked my first cigarette there with Wayne, and my last one.
Your first and last.
I didn't see no advantage to it, I still smoke a cigar on the 4th of July, like fireworks with. That's all the smoking I've ever done.
You were one of the smart ones.
That's
for sure. That's interesting.
Anyway, after that, Dad got a job with MoDOT, and we moved to Stratford for 3 years, and Republic for 5. Then we came back to Marshfield in '74. Of course, I went to my senior year here in this building, and my class was the last ones to graduate here in this building. And when I graduated, I worked for Noel Thomas out at the service station, and I wanted him to hand me my diploma. He was on the school board. And he did. And that your dad mentioned last week that he had traded and worked with Gene Fraker and Noel Thomas up when they had the station on the square. And that Uncle Gene had offered him a job, and that was a neat story. Hopefully all of you can listen and go back and hear Gene's interview last week. It was really good. But if you haven't yet, and if you don't get a chance to for a bit, he was working for Gene Fraker, and Gene thought he was a great worker and offered him a chance to. He said, "If you'll just stay on with me, I'll you go down to
Was it the Ford dealership?
Ford dealership.
Well, you tell it.
Lily
yeah.
Williams, probably.
Yeah.
He said, "I'll buy you a new pickup if you'll stay here and work with me."
Yeah.
But Dad stayed with MoDOT anyway.
Yeah.
That's probably the best deal.
Yeah, long term. But boy, that's
Long term.
that's quite an offer on both ends. Of course, Gene must have thought a lot of him, and I'm sure your dad thought a lot of Gene to offer him that.
But when I was a kid, I'd hang around up there a lot at Noel and Gene's
Yeah.
station.
Yeah.
It's up on the square, and I'd go sweep the floor, around the big gas pumps and stuff, keep it cleaned up.
So Noel knew you then from that
Noel
when
knew
you went to work later on.
Yeah, and they called me Peanut.
Yeah.
I liked peanuts back then, so they called me Peanut.
You didn't put them in your Dr. Pepper, did you?
I did.
Yeah.
And
You learned that from Lowell Miller, though.
Probably.
There was always a good group of guys that hung out up there.
There was. And then the movie theater was right around the corner.
Right.
So Saturday afternoons, I might go over there and watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watched Old Yeller over there.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the first movie I'd watched in movie theater.
Yeah.
And then if they might give me $1 for sweeping around there and cleaning up and stuff. I'd go back through the alley to Mary's Variety and buy me some little Matchbox cars or whatever they had,
Yeah. You didn't go to the pool hall, did you?
I never did go to the pool hall.
No, I really didn't either. That was off limits.
I think Mom and Dad would have frowned.
You learned too many cuss words at the pool hall. Yeah. Great times. I did the same thing. Spent a lot of time up there. We would ride our bikes lived over behind McDonald's in the Fraker edition, and ride our bikes all the way to the square. And of course, there was no cell phones, and this would be 8 years old, third grade or the summer after third grade or whatever. And
there would be a lot of kids.
There'd be a lot of kids around
on bikes.
But,
people were just.
Oh,
the square was busy back then.
But Mom would say, when you get to the square, when you get to the station, call me. And so when I get to the station, that was what you call back and make sure she knew we made it,
Yeah. In the summertime, we'd ride our bikes down to the pool.
Yeah.
And go swimming,
Yeah.
And some of that water was always cold.
Oh, yeah. And in the wintertime, ride our sleds on the hill down there.
Yeah.
That was all the kids would, my senior year, we were out of school for the whole month of January. And we rode just about every day, went down and rode rode our sleds on the hill from the tennis courts down to the park there.
Anyway, when we came back to Marshfield, we moved out on KK Highway, just off of A. Lived there for maybe a couple of years, and then Mom and Dad moved to town over on Hubble Drive.
Yeah.
That's the last place I lived with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought that house. I bought a house on 2nd Street, 2nd and Mill.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 2-story house. It had a basement, 2 fireplaces. Gave $12,000 for it.
Yeah, that would have been around what, 70?
76, probably 77. Bought it from Olive Robertson, and she carried $2,000 of the loan, and I borrowed the rest of it from your dad out of United
Savings. Yeah. Olive was an old retired school teacher.
She was.
She'd been my dad's teacher. Been in this building many years prior to that, and then retired. I don't believe she ever married. I don't think. I never heard that she did, but probably had a sack of money somewhere stowed away. Don't you imagine?
Laverne Stockton lived across the road from me, and Leon Blazer lived around the corner.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Leon worked with you at the station then.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leon lived there as long as I could remember.
Oh yeah, he was with Noel at the station for years, years and years.
Kevin Dennis grew up around the corner there.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, it seemed like there was a lot more kids out playing, and
right.
It was just busy.
Yeah, Maple Street was a very thriving street back in the 40s and 50s, and my mom was raised over there, and then even into the 70s.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then you got out on your own, you bought your house, and had a family, I guess. Got started, and see, you had 2 boys, right?
2 boys,
Yeah.
CJ and Todd.
Yeah.
CJ lives in Springfield now. And he works at home, and Todd lives up in the St. Louis area. And when I married Carlene, she had 4 kids, and we had a set of twins.
Yeah. So altogether, you got a pretty good house
There's
full of
8.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
don't
we
you?
had 8 of them living with us for a while.
You did.
Yeah. We had built a house out of Northview. It was a big house. It had 5 bedrooms.
Oh yeah. Where was that one at?
It's on Northview Road.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think who you might know. You go past Clyde Reploggles.
Yeah.
And go up to the tracks and turn right.
Okay.
It's down that way.
Down that way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, your dad ended up out that way too.
Yeah,
right?
he'd already lived there. We bought 3 acres from him.
I see. I see.
And we built the house ourselves.
Yeah.
I did everything but the cabinets and the concrete work.
Mm-hmm. You worked for the post office for that.
I was
time?
working for the
Yeah.
post office.
How many years did you work for the post office?
34.
34 years.
Uh-huh.
Wow. You and Jim Baldwin, is he still? I guess is he still carrying?
No,
on?
he retired this year.
He did retire. How many years did he have then?
He had more than I did.
Did he?
I think he started not too long before I did, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
We were both subs at the same time. And
So he would have had over 40 then.
I think he did.
Wow.
Close to it anyway, because he started 5 years. We both started out as subs,
Yeah.
and I worked for Jim Wittenberg
Yeah.
for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when Jim took that route over, I switched to another route because I knew he would be taking off much. He didn't have much vacation built up or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I switched to route 2, and I was a sub on it for 5 years. Then I got on full time in 95.
95.
96.
When did you actually start then? What year?
86.
86.
Uh-huh.
You were sub 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
It was a long deal.
Well, yeah, those were great jobs back
They
then.
were.
I mean,
You know,
everybody wanted to be a mail carrier.
When I went up to take the test, we went to the Shrine Mosque, and there's probably I'm guessing 500 people there taking
Wow.
that test.
Wow.
And when one of my boys graduated, it's been maybe 7 or 8 years ago. He wanted to get on the post office. He went to take the test. He was the only one there. It was a whole
Really?
different deal. They can't keep people now, you know.
They just don't pay enough in comparison, maybe.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when they take the job, I don't think they realize that they've got to work Saturdays,
Yeah.
and you know that
Every Saturday.
every Saturday.
Yeah.
And that interferes with ball games and stuff
Mhm.
like that. People,
And what about having to provide a vehicle? Like, you always had to have your own vehicle, right?
most of the time I did. They come up with these little
Yeah.
boxes. I call them
Yeah.
microwave ovens.
Later years, yeah.
They were hot in the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
I had one of those for a while, but it didn't work out very good. They had a lot of mechanical issues.
Yeah.
They finally got rid of it. I went back to driving my own
Your
vehicle.
own.
Uh-huh.
Did they pay it well enough that it worked out okay?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
worked out okay.
Yeah.
You didn't really make any money at it, but you got
Comfortable.
pretty much paid for itself.
So after you kind of got started with your family and all that, before you went to work for the post office, what did you do at first?
When I got out of high school, during high school, I had an uncle that worked at Marshfield Steel Plant, and I worked there in the summertime for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a good job for a high school kid. It paid good,
Yeah,
and it was 40 or 50 hours a week.
sure.
And then I had to quit when school started. And then after I got out of school, I went back to work there for a little while. David Ray hired me.
Mm-hmm.
He was a nice guy.
Manager, yeah.
Yeah. He lives down the road from me now. I see
Yeah.
him down
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Then after that, I bought a little store up on the east side of town. He's out in front of Cantler Brothers Garage.
The
It was
Joy's Market?
Yeah, it's called Farr's Mini Market at the
I
time.
forgot about that.
And
Now,
I-
that was after Reploggles had owned it?
Uh-huh. I bought it from Glenn
From
and
Glenn and
Maxine.
Maxine.
Uh-huh.
Because I guess when he got elected, he bought
Yeah.
that, didn't he? Or
Yeah.
sold that.
He sold it.
I'd forgot that you had that for a while.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
And Ted and Duke Cantler ran the garage right
Yeah.
behind us.
Yeah.
Ted's boys, I'd give them jobs sorting pop bottles.
Yeah.
They'd come over and it'd take a while. I mean, back then everybody was turning pop bottles in.
Yeah.
You know?
So this would have been around 1980 or so, maybe?
That was in 77,
77,
78.
8. Okay.
and I had a couple of people working for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was real busy. It was a busy place.
Yeah.
This is back before they had get and goes and
Right.
all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a workhouse too. I mean,
Then
there was a lot
noontime,
of
you
work to
still
it.
made sandwiches like
We made
Glenn Maxine
sandwiches.
did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those steel plant guys came over there.
Yeah,
didn't
yeah. You had a lunch hour rush. Yeah. It was interesting, and I liked it, but it was a lot of work, you
Yeah.
know, for a young guy.
they?
You know,
Yeah.
going into it, not really knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then after that, I had a dump truck for a while, and then I got out of that and I went to work for some convenience stores. I worked for Get and Go for a while, and Star Foods, and then I bought a milk route. I hauled milk for 3 years.
Did you?
It was a bulk route. Had a lot of fun doing. I enjoyed doing that about as much as anything
Did you?
I've ever done. But it was 7 days a week,
Yeah.
12, 13 hours a day.
Oh
you know.
yeah. A lot of work.
So I did that for 3 years, and then when I had a chance to get on the post office, I thought that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, because he was off weekends and
Yeah.
holidays.
Yeah.
We had some interesting stories when I was hauling milk. I had my dad with me one day. It was snowing. We were out at Vic Cantrell's barn, kind of on the old Sam Rose place.
Mhm, yeah.
Had kind of backed up
Seymour Road.
Head back up to the barn a little bit. We went in, started pumping the milk, and we were sitting there talking. And all of a sudden, the hose went out the wall, and the valve off the tank went with it.
Oh no.
Of course,
Oh,
milk
my
was
goodness.
going everywhere.
Oh
you know.
my goodness. Yeah.
I put my hand over the thing on the tank, so the tank, we wouldn't lose the whole tank of milk.
Right.
Dad went out and got the truck, backed it back up there, and we had to pump it out that way.
Yeah.
And another story I had when I was hauling milk, Garland Calloway
Mm-hmm.
had some white cats. And I picked his milk up one morning about 8 o'clock. And then I went on down to Ava to finish the load out and unloaded it at Foremost in Springfield. Then I come back to Marshfield. Well, on the way back, I picked up another load of milk. And I had a flat tire. So I stopped out at Knowles. And I got a jack out to jack the truck up. And there was a cat sitting on the rear end of that truck. And it was dirty, filthy. And it was snowing that day. And I knew where the cat come from. Because Garland and Doris didn't have any kids. And they treated those cats like they were kids. So I grabbed the cat and I threw him in an oil box. And I called Garland. I said, "Are you missing the cat?" He said, "I sure am." So I said, "Well,
It rode all the way to Ava.
He rode to Ava. He rode to Foremost in Springfield.
Is that not
And
something?
he got on the rear end of the truck. It was warm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, I boxed the cat up. And when I got done that day, I took the cat back to Garland's. And he had a big sack of steaks and stuff he gave me. Because he valued that cat, you know.
Oh man, that's crazy.
And another thing, when you went to Doris and Garland's barn to pick up milk, they always had a banana or a piece of cake. Something would be on top of their tank
On the
every
tank.
day.
Yeah.
They were really nice people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Wayne Burnett was out there, hauled his milk. And
Mhm.
there was a lot of people.
Lot
I
of
think I had
people, man.
28 stops back then.
Did you? 28.
Yeah.
Wow. How long? What time did you start in the morning?
One morning I started at 3:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I hauled 3 loads of milk one day and 2 the next. The next day I think I started about 6.
Did you take them all into Springfield?
No. Most of it got unloaded right here in Marshfield.
Where the
Where
craft
Hampton's
plant? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that became different companies after Kraft. So
Yeah.
I remember it was. I can't think of the name now. Before
Southern
Milk and
Uh-huh.
yeah, different ones, and before it finally all ended up being Mid-Am, I guess.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. And then you started the post office after that.
Uh-huh.
So I know you have to have some stories running the postal route. So
Well,
have you thought about any of those?
yeah. I really enjoyed my job at the post office. I loved it. It was a good job. You go in the mornings, sort your mail out. Once you got your mail sorted, it took an hour and a half or 2. The rest of the day you were on your own.
And what time would you start there?
Most of the time around 7.
That's
There was
7.
times you started at 6:30.
Yeah.
Most of the time about 7.
Now
Anyway,
you started out just to bring us kind of again keep our history. So because we've had Tom Farr on.
Uh-huh.
Of course, Tom's been a whatever it was 40 or 50-year career at the post office. But you kind of started out when some of those old timers were still around then.
I think I started when Tom retired.
Did you?
I think so. So he's been retired a long time.
He has been retired a long time. But you had Wittenberg still there, and you had Joe Birchfield already retired.
He was already gone.
He was already gone.
Ray Claspel hired me.
Ray Claspel. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, was James Jones already retired?
No.
Because he worked.
He was
he
there
was
for
the janitor.
he was there for a while. Him and
Lynn Miner.
Yeah, before Lynn Miner though, Virgil Hunt.
Virgil Hunt. Yeah. Yeah.
Virgil and James Jones worked together.
See, those are the World War II generation guys that came back from the war and started their career at the post office.
Yeah.
And so you pretty much followed right in behind them. I mean, there wasn't really much of a gap from those guys.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah.
Virgil was there. He was there for a few years after I started.
Yeah.
And I worked with Virgil a little bit when I was substituting. If Virgil went on vacation or something, they'd have me kind of take his place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But at one time, that building had a lot of stuff in it. It had there was a barber shop, I think, in it at one time.
Didn't know that.
And where they drafted people.
Yeah.
That was in there, and the soil
Selective
conservation.
Service, soil conservation.
There was a lot of business in that building. At one
Federal
time.
Home. Is it FHA they called it? Yeah, there's
Now
federal
I think
building
now it's pretty much empty.
I think so too.
They did have a training class upstairs. They probably still do.
Yeah.
All the carriers from the whole area come to Marshfield.
Oh, did
They
they?
got trained there.
I see. Interesting. How many routes are there now?
I'm not real sure. When I quit, I think there was 10 maybe.
10, and there was
10
about.
rural routes and 2 city
I think
routes.
I remember as early back as having 4.
Yeah.
Because I know, I can remember 4, and then maybe 5. But after that, I didn't. I mean.
Tom Farr carried Route 4,
and
that was there wasn't a Route 5 at that.
That wasn't that southeast.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he covered this part of town back here. And then on out in the country.
Yeah.
But then it seemed like it really grew after that. I mean, I remember there was just a Route 5, and then 6 and 7 and 8 and 9.
All
It just kept getting bigger.
Yeah.
And when I started, you could put all your mail and packages in the back seat of a car. I started off with I think it's an old 72 LTD or something, it's kind of a big car.
Yeah.
Then when I quit, there'd be a lot of days you couldn't get it all on the truck.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
Just the junk because of the junk mail.
Well, that and you might have 100 or 150 packages.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Now, what year did you quit or retire?
Let's see. It's been 5 years ago.
Okay.
So around 20.
Around 20, 19 or 20. Okay.
Yeah.
So people were obviously
They started to order
internet stuff. Yeah.
And I picked up mail at Webco Industries. They ship stuff all over the world, and sometimes they'd have 400 or 500 packages to pick up, and I couldn't get it all in my truck.
Wow.
That I'd have to come back and get another load, or they'd send somebody else out there to help me out.
Yeah. Wow. What do you remember? What postage was when you first started?
I think it's around a quarter, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's 73 cents now, isn't it?
It's pretty high.
70 something. Wow.
But it's a lot different. When I first started, you went in and sorted your mail, your letters and your flats. And that was pretty much it. You might have a few boxes of checks or something to deliver.
Yeah.
Now it's more to the package side of it. And it's just a lot different than it was when I started.
Sure. Do you think that has kept the post office solvent because they can get a lot more, just deliver packages as opposed to a letter?
I'd say it had to help. Some of these packages you deliver, the postage on it might be $30.
Yeah. My boys do a little they do a little buying and selling of cards and different stuff, and I know it's unbelievable how much some of that postage can be.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like you said, $20-30 on something, but if it's a collectible item, I mean, it still pays for it, pays, but it certainly closes the gap, you know, on the profit.
I order a lot of tractor parts and stuff
Mhm.
through over the internet. Some of that stuff's kind of, you know, the postage is kind of pricey.
Yeah, yeah. So, what other stories come to mind? Is there anything really interesting, life-saving or life-threatening, or anything like that in over the
Oh.
years? Because you pretty much were always rural route. You weren't in the city a lot, were you?
No, I was mainly rural.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, there's always a lot of snow stories. Out past Crown, you know where Crown's at. There's a big hill,
Yeah.
and one day it was ice, and I come down that big hill, and there's a van stuck in the middle of it. It had a lady and some little kids in it,
Oh wow.
and I didn't know what to do with them really. You know,
Uh-huh.
I thought I can't leave them here.
Right.
So I told the lady, I said, I'm gonna hook onto you and see if I can pull you up this hill.
Yeah.
And I did.
You did.
Got her over the hill.
Yeah.
And she took off. I didn't never saw her again.
Well, good for you. That wasn't that Ranger you bought that time.
It was. Uh-huh.
That 4-wheel drive Ranger.
Yeah.
That's a good.
I
little
drove
truck.
that for years.
Oh, that's a good little truck.
It was. That's a good truck.
Yeah. Good gas mileage.
No, it didn't do too good on gas.
Oh, it didn't.
No, about 10 miles a gallon.
Is that all?
On the mail.
Well, that's not as good as a 150.
Well, on the mail route. Yeah, you know, out on the highway, you probably get 20.
I see. Yeah. Because that's the reason I thought you bought it. You thought it'd do better mileage than.
Well, I thought it would do better than
Right.
it did,
Yeah.
but it turned out to be okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it gave me good service.
Sure.
Yeah, I could change a set of brakes in an hour. You know, it didn't take me long.
Yeah.
I always kept an extra set at the house. If I need to change brakes, I could just
I bet
swap
a
them
mail
out.
carrier would be hard on brake pads.
About every
Oh,
12, 13,000 miles.
Country roads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. How many miles did you end up on that?
Oh, it's 240 or something like that. Yeah. And they were rough miles. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of it was, you know, it's all stop and go. I had around 700 stops on my route.
700
Uh-huh.
stops.
Yeah. I started
Every
off
day.
every day. I started off, you know, where the
Wait a
trailer.
minute. 700 stops every day. Do
Uh-huh.
the math. How many would that have to be an hour?
Oh, it's
80
probably
an hour.
100 an hour, something like that. Yeah.
How could you do that? I mean, that's like
Well, you had to keep moving.
more than one a minute.
I start off at the trailer court across the highway.
Of course, I guess you'd have a few together that would
Yeah.
you'd gain a little bit.
Yeah, you know where the trailer court
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It had about 70 mailboxes.
Oh, it did.
Uh-huh. And most days wasn't too bad there, but if you had a set of box holders, or maybe sometimes two sets, it took a while to go through that
Oh my goodness.
70 boxes.
I'd
you know.
reckon.
it
I
took a
did
while.
not realize there was that many on a route.
Then after I left the trailer court, I kind of went out J Highway.
Mm-hmm.
Vaughn Brown lived out there, and he
Yeah.
always said he could set his watch by me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went on out quite a ways on J Highway, the area I live in on Greenwood. Then I kind of worked my way back to town. I got that area over around Prairie Lane,
Yeah.
that whole neighborhood behind Dairy Queen.
Oh yeah.
Got all that. Then I went out toward Northview, and then I worked my way back to town. About 60, I think it's about 65 miles a day.
Wow. I didn't realize that you had that many stops. Man,
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
lot.
you think about Marshfield and the population of Marshfield.
Yeah.
You divide that by 10 rounds.
Well, sure.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely, that'd be true. But man.
Yeah, I got stuck one day out on KK. We had a big snow, and this little car come by and kind of ran me off the road. It was a big snow. I got stuck in the ditch.
Yeah.
I called one of the boys to come and get me, and he got stuck out on DD. So I sat there for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
Finally, a guy came by and pulled me out.
Yeah. So you retired in around 20, and then you did you immediately start driving a school bus?
No, I worked for Orscheln's.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, maybe a year. Well, I worked there for several years part time. Then when I retired, I worked there a little bit too.
Did you enjoy that?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like doing that.
So you'd run the mail route all day, and then you go to work at Orson, or
Yeah, I
mainly
work-
the weekends, or what?
Yeah, mainly I'd work there on Saturdays, and
Yeah.
some nights.
Yeah.
Sometimes on Sunday, not
Yeah.
too often on
Yeah.
Sunday. That was when we were having to wear face masks and stuff. We
Uh-huh.
kind of had a disagreement over that. It's
During
like,
COVID.
I left. I left. And so this guy, I was out the house one day. We got new neighbors who moved in behind us. Tony Blackwell.
Uh-huh.
He's the school transportation director, and he asked what I was doing, and I told him nothing really.
Yeah.
He said, "Why don't you come drive a bus?"
Yeah.
So I did that. I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. You enjoy it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
As the kids, give you any trouble?
Not a whole lot. They're pretty good bunch of kids.
Yeah.
They're kids, so I mean, you
Yeah.
know, they sometimes they do things they shouldn't do.
It seems like when we were kids and rode the bus, there was an awful lot of, I mean, all the kids rode the bus back then, just about.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have parents dropping kids off.
Yeah.
So I can remember, you know, as a kid, and I only rode the bus as an elementary kid, but, you know, the older high school boys in the back, and you're kind of rowdy.
Yeah.
Do you have that? The
It-
older
it's-
kid, you don't have as many older kids now, do you? Really?
Well, I've got a few.
Do you?
Uh,
But I bet they're not rowdy like they were then, were they?
they can be, but
Yeah.
you know, the buses have cameras on them now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so everything they do is on camera. I've got 7 cameras on my bus,
Yeah.
so anything they do, it's on camera.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
that's
they're
good.
most of them are sitting back there. The high school kids, most of them sit back and they kind of watch their phones, and
Yeah.
you know, they're not too rowdy.
Right.
You really have more trouble with little kindergarten kids
Yeah.
because they don't know what to do on a bus.
Hmm.
So they like to get up and run around. And, you know, they're supposed to sit in their seat.
Yeah. Yeah. Still no seatbelts on the bus?
No.
What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think they really need the seat.
I didn't know. I mean, I know we debated that in the House of Representatives, you know, about why, if there should or shouldn't and so forth. And I just was curious.
It would take a lot of time for everybody to get seatbelted in.
Yeah.
Those buses are they're actually built pretty tough.
Yeah. Pretty safe. Yeah.
And they think now, you know, all the kids are facing the same direction. They're all sitting down. They're pretty safe.
Yeah. I'm sure they've got the data to prove it.
Oh yeah.
Now you kind of got into restoring tractors and even cars, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, back when Robert was, he was probably 14 or so. We watched the movie Smokey and the Bandit, and he loved that movie. And I told him I had bought a brand new Trans Am in 1978, and so we kind of got started fixing those up. We fixed up probably 7 or 8 of them, and sold them.
Yeah.
And we had them painted and really fixed up nice. You know.
Right.
And I got one now that needs a lot of work. It's we haven't done much to it yet.
Yeah.
We will eventually.
Yeah.
Then the tractors, I've got my grandpa's tractor that he bought new
Oh, do you?
in 1952.
Now, have you had it all along, or did you find it?
No. When I was carrying mail, I knew Grandpa, he traded tractors with my uncle. Kenneth George had it for a while. Then Kenneth sold his place to some of the Roast Boys. But was it Keith? No, I don't know if it's Keith.
Where was that place at?
Out on Elm Street.
Well, Elm Street would be
One of the road. Anyway, it ended up at Bob Rose's place.
okay.
And when I was carrying mail, I'd seen it sitting up there. And I knew who it belonged to.
Yeah.
So I bought it from Bob.
Okay.
And the motor was locked up on it when I bought it. People said to pour Coke in the cylinders and this and that and the other. I put WD-40 in there. We couldn't get the motor broke loose. And finally, I had another tractor there, and I backed them up to each other and hooked a little short power takeoff shaft to each one. And I just kind of bumped the clutch a little bit on it, and it broke loose.
It did.
Yeah, and it ran. It's been that way ever since.
Really? You didn't have to break it down then,
No.
did you? That's interesting.
Then I sold it to when I moved to town, and I didn't really have a place to keep it, so I sold it to Gary McFarland,
Hmm.
and it sat on his place for about 20 years.
Oh,
And I carried his mail too.
yeah,
And I kept seeing it sitting out there, and it's just sitting outside. And I thought, I've got to buy that back.
yeah, yeah.
So I got it bought back. Now I'm having to restore it again.
Is that international?
Uh-huh. Yeah. He bought it from Vestal Equipment when they were over here
Yeah.
off the square.
Yeah. My dad worked there for a while.
He did.
In the late 50s.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, he might have been there when Grandpa bought
Good
it.
ad. Dad said they used to. When Dad got out of the service in '55, and then he came back to Marshfield and went to work there before he went to work for Kraft. I think he went to work for Kraft in like '58.
Yeah.
So that period of time between there, he worked there, and he said that's when a lot of people were putting new refrigerators in their houses,
Yeah.
replacing ice boxes.
Uh-huh.
And part of the deal, if they'd come in and buy a refrigerator, International sold refrigerators.
Yeah.
He said we'd haul off their old ice box for them. That was a big deal to people. Well,
Uh-huh.
what are we gonna do with that old ice box? Well, we'll haul it off for you.
Yeah.
He said they'd bring them back up to the shop and they would chop those ice boxes up with an axe and burn the wood in their stove.
Yeah.
And of course, the old liners inside were, metal or whatever, and
Uh-huh.
stainless or something, and they'd scrap it out. But for that wood, the cabinets were all wood. He said, I burnt hundreds of those ice boxes in our stove up there. They'd all be worth hundreds of dollars
Oh,
a
yeah.
piece today.
That's where Cecil's engine shop was, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
International tractors, international trucks. My grandpa Cale bought a new, I think it was a '58 international pickup. He drove it for years, and Dad and he went to Ohio or Indiana, and
Uh-huh.
brought it back. I mean, back in those days, it was cheaper to do that than to ship it on a train car or whatever.
Yeah.
Noel Thomas had an international truck.
Yeah, he did.
That blue one.
Yeah. Did it have a big wooden bumper on the front of it? Seemed
I
like
think
it
so.
had.
Yeah, he may have put that on it though. He may not have.
Yeah, but he would push cars with
Oh,
it when
yeah.
they wouldn't start.
Oh yeah. That was about a '53, I think.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, I've got two tractors. I've got a Cub and this Super 8 my grandpa had. The Cub, my grandson claims it,
yeah,
and we go to tractor shows, and we go to one in Kabul.
yeah,
Then they have one at Halltown, and this last year he got to put it in a tractor pull.
that's
A
cool.
used tractor pull.
Yeah,
in them.
yeah,
That was fun.
yeah,
And they had a barrel roll where you put a barrel in front of your tractor and you push it down a track,
yeah,
turn around and push it back. And that's really fun for a kid.
yeah, yeah. It would be fun.
Grandson's 9 years old now. He just has a ball with it. He's been out pushing snow with it
Mhm.
this week. I plan on having those tractors in the parade this year. I'm still working on the Super 8. I've got it about done.
Yeah,
So
well,
I
good.
plan on putting them in the parade.
I think that's important. The future generations they don't even know what a tractor is if we
Yeah.
don't keep doing those kinds of things. And we're coming up on really about 100 years now of automobiles and
Uh-huh.
tractors, and it's kind of a neat time because that industry, you might say, those industries, the transportation industries, even the airlines are all about 100 years old, except
Yeah.
for the train, which was here,
Yeah.
and the stagecoach. But
Well, I can remember
it's kind of a
talking
neat time.
I remember talking to my grandma Orphy when she was old,
Yeah,
and she said she could remember seeing her first car. There weren't any cars in Marshfield.
yeah, right, yeah.
But she remembers seeing the first one, that she could remember.
I think Tom Farr told me, I believe it was Tom, that maybe Dr. CR was the first car.
Yeah.
He had the first car that people remember or knew about,
Yeah.
around town here at least.
He did house calls, didn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah. And of course, as far as the Model A, Model T, then the Model A, and those vehicles, a lot of those they would make those doodle bugs and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that,
Uh-huh.
to use on the farm, cut the backs off and put
Yeah.
a bed on them. And
Uh-huh.
I've heard Dad, I think their first vehicle was a Model A, I think, with a bed on the back of it.
My grandpa they called them doodle bugs.
Yeah.
Grandpa had one.
Yeah.
And he had a buzz saw on it.
Yeah.
He cut wood with
Yeah.
it. So
Don Roast has got one, a doodle bug.
he
And
still
it's-
got it.
Yeah, it's the one that that my grandpa
Uh-huh.
had when they were little. They restored that, and I don't think it ever quite really ran real good. I don't know. they had it in the parade here 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but he had it. He was hauling on the trailer,
Yeah.
and they sat on it, you know.
Uh-huh.
But I know Bob Roast and he and EL were trying to get it running one day. I was out there at Bob's. You know.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. He'd be glad to show it to you.
I have to go out and look at it sometime.
You know, it's hard to believe that we're almost up an hour. Doesn't time go by fast?
It does.
It's fun. It's interesting. I just really enjoy being able to do this and having folks like yourself coming in and you've got a lot of knowledge of Marshfield and the history around, and it's fun to do that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much. Anything else that you can think of, like you want to talk about before we adjourn today?
Well, you're talking about the post office. Jim Baldwin.
Yep.
And me.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelly Davis, I think was his name. He was the city carrier. We all had million-mile safety awards.
Really?
They had a picture in the Marshfield Mail. It's been a few years ago.
Yeah. Million miles. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable.
It is.
No accidents at all?
I had one. I was out in front of Hobson's Meat, and where it used to be.
Yeah.
It was on a Saturday. It was foggy.
Yeah.
And I stopped at, there's 3 mailboxes there, and I stopped to put mail in them. And I seen this car coming up behind me, and then I was meeting the car too.
Yeah.
And the car behind me he started to pass me, and I headed for the ditch.
Oh man!
But I didn't make it in time.
You didn't.
I got rear-ended.
You did.
But that didn't count against me because it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Right.
at fault accident.
Right. Wow.
But that's the only one I had on the.
Wow.
I never hit
That's
a mailbox.
amazing.
I never did hit a mailbox on my route, but I had a big brick mailbox when I lived over over the west side of town there. And one day I hit that with my trailer and knocked it over.
Oh, but you weren't pulling the mail.
But no, I wasn't carrying mail.
But ironic that the mailman hit his own mailbox.
Yeah.
That's really neat. That's really interesting. You're a couple years older than I am, but seem strange that we're at this stage of life?
It does.
Especially when you come back to this building and, I find that all the time, just about every day, I think about that. And when I have guys around me or gals that are my age, it's even more prevalent, because we remember each other as we were in those days. And it's just really strange.
We had when I was working at the post office in May every year, Mother's Day weekend, they would have a food drive. And it was always on a Saturday, so the subs usually worked on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So they would get their car would get full of food. They'd pick up food off the mailboxes.
Yeah.
So us regular carriers, some of us would volunteer to come in, and we'd go out and find our sub and get all those groceries from them.
Right.
Take it back to the post office. So some of it would be in Walmart sacks or paper sacks, people just whatever they had,
Yeah.
So I found my sub out there one day, and I cleaned her car out for her. I got all the sacks out of there, all the groceries. Went back to the post office, and backed up to the dock, and we were Jim Baldwin was there too, I think. We were unloading stuff, sitting up on the dock. There's a sack of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I thought, who would put Kentucky Fried Chicken in a food drive?
Yeah.
Then a thought occurred to me, maybe that was Josie's lunch.
Oh.
And it was. She had stopped at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Got her lunch, so I hauled it back to the post office. I had to go out to find her again. Take her lunch back to her.
Hopefully not too much time had passed.
It wasn't too long.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, there's just so much that we could sit here and talk about and reminisce about, running around Marshfield and how things were on the square in those days, and
used
Farr
to on the square. If you got up there on a Friday or a Saturday night, it was busy.
Oh, busy.
There'd be people parked everywhere.
Yeah.
Talking, sitting
hundreds of cars.
Yeah.
Around the townhouse.
Yeah.
Dairy Queen.
You go up there now, it's just like it's dead.
Yeah, there's nothing there. But we there were some ornery kids, but in general, even the kids that maybe were doing things they shouldn't have been doing, in general, they're pretty good kids.
Yeah, they were.
Really.
They were.
And I wasn't perfect by any means, but never got in jail and never got caught. But I mean, you know, there was some ornery kids, but
Yeah.
but like I said, considered a lot of even them my friends, and you know, again, none of us were perfect.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just a different world today. I think the drugs have taken people down a path that, you know,
Yeah, I think
point of no
too.
return for many of them, and
Uh-huh.
some, you know, with programs that like a lot of these churches have, the freeway program, some of these rehabilitation programs have been great for those type of people, and I appreciate that. A lot of them got started, you know, when they were young in school or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a lot of them didn't have the home life we had either.
Yeah.
Made
Yeah.
a
We
big
had good
difference.
parents.
Made a big difference.
Yeah. It
Going to
did.
church every Sunday and learning things about life that
When I was little, like I
Appreciate
said earlier, we went to Mount Sinai Church, and Lola Bell Underwood
yeah,
was one of my Sunday school
Absolutely.
teachers. Of course, she lives down the road from me now.
yeah,
I can see her house from mine.
yeah.
But you know, people like that make an influence on you. You know,
They did. Those people at church, absolutely, and learn a lot and look up to, and they kind of help keep you accountable too.
They
You
do.
know, if you got to
Uh-huh.
look every Sunday at these people, you know, you don't want to tarnish your parents' reputation or something
Yeah.
by doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And all it does take a community to raise kids, and Marshfield has been a great one for sure. But I guess it's about that time, James.
Okay.
It's 2:03. This has been a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming in, and hope to see you maybe at your reunion this summer, and there'll be some hopefully more classmates here, and
Yeah.
get to see everybody. It'll be fun to reminisce again.
It will.
So,
Yeah.
well, thank you.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you,
man.
Lyndall.
Yeah. Take
Thank you
care.
for doing it.
We'll see y'all again hopefully next week. We'll see what's going to be going on with the weather and in the community and all that, and what I got to do at home. So anyway, thank you all. I don't know.